I don't think kids today have an attention problem. I think they're starving, not for more freedom, not for more structure, and not for more safety, but for what feeds their souls. And when kids are cut off from the things God designed them to need, they're not just bored, they're anxious, emotionally fragile, constantly overstimulated. They melt down over little things, they can't entertain themselves, and they never seem to be at peace. Most parents blame sugar or chaos in the home or overscheduling, but I think those are just scratching the surface. After working nearly 2 decades with teenagers and raising my own kids, I've become convinced that something much deeper is happening. Screens are not just stealing our kids' time, they're stealing the experiences that actually make them resilient adults. That's why we are gifting our children with a device-free childhood. Today, I'm going to share with you the 3 God-given needs that every child has, how modern life is slowly starving your children of these needs, and what you can do to reverse the damage before it becomes permanent. Many kids are suffering from a deep, unmet need, and the high stimulation of the screen is the very thing masking it from us. My husband was one of those kids. He did well in school. He appeared to be happy. He spent all of his time on video games. Lived in the country. There was no neighborhood kids to play with, and his older brother was off at college. So he will tell you, video games were my life until thankfully God intervened in his life. He started going to church when he was 15, 16, and met some amazing people. And we had a awesome group of friends that would hang out several times a week and hike. We would go to different people's houses. And what he says is, it was the first time I really had friends and I didn't know what I was missing. This truth will change how you look at things. 1 hour of screen time equals 1 hour of loneliness. And as a young mom, I didn't really get this. And so the way that I began in raising my children was leading them to anxiety and depression, because that's what childhood loneliness does. My kids had their favorite shows that they would watch regularly. It was a nice time to just chill and relax. But now, if you come to my house in the afternoon or evening, my kids won't even be in the house. They're going to be outside. You'll find my oldest, who's 14 and has no phone, probably talking to a parent and having some debate with them while that parent is overlooking my 11-year-old. She's probably with her best friend, who's 2, and they're hanging out. And my 9-year-old is probably on the back hill digging or creating a cache for a bunch of acorns. It turns out that kids need hours of time with flesh and blood friends. So that's my aim, but my strategy for accomplishing it failed for many years. The first step for making strategic changes to our home has been assessment. Once we solidly identify areas of weakness and don't just have vague misgivings, we're actually able to get traction. We made a tool that helps other families identify their areas of vulnerability and also the next steps they can take to help transform their family. It's called the Culture Proof Audit. It's a 5-minute quiz, and it's a very helpful kickstart to more intentional parenting. You can grab that in the link below and assess your own family in the areas that we're talking about today. So let's talk about my first strategy of play dates. I've been on many play dates when my kids were little. We would go meet up at the airport for a field trip, meet up at the zoo, go downtown to the farmer's market. And I never talked to any of those people anymore. I'm glad I spent time with them. Don't regret it. Glad we had those experiences. But who do I actually talk to? All of our best friends live within half a mile of us, and most of them live doors away. My kids have clocked in hours upon hours with these kids, and it has been fantastic. What I've had to come to terms with is that the less effort it takes to see your friends, the more hours you actually spend with them. But if you think childhood loneliness is bad, there's actually something much more sinister at work here. And if I had understood this as a young mom, it would have totally changed the way I got through my days. So we were driving in the van 2 days ago, and my kids asked me, what are some illegal drugs? And I'm very limited in my scope here. I'm like, well, there's cocaine and ecstasy. And why would anyone want to do them? Well, they make you feel very good for a little time. And the problem is, the next day, you literally cannot be as happy as you were because your body starts to change in the way it receives those happy signals. And so you need it more because the normal things cannot make you as happy as you once were. And I don't have much drug experience, okay? So hopefully I did a good job. But I was an RN, and I was thinking about this one lady that, a mom, it's insane, who had overdosed while she's pregnant and was dying. She had like a reaction anyway. And so I stayed my entire shift. I sat by her bed monitoring her baby. The lady was almost dead because if the lady did tank or her baby did tank, we were going to do an emergency C-section right there in the room. And so I'm sitting here looking at this beautiful young lady who had wrecked her own body, and her baby was at risk. Why? That's addiction, right? It's insane to actually watch someone throw their life away because they want to be happy again, and they've ruined their chances. Do you know where I'm going with this? When you shut off a screen, you've cut off a drug. I had to change the normal way of raising children to save them from the starvation of overstimulation. I did it all, y'all. Screens are so convenient. When you need some quiet, you need some space, but I just cut it off. The kid will replace that stimulation with an appropriate level of happiness. So my kids now, I mean, they're incredibly creative in the way that they get their joy in life. My two youngest daughters, one of their favorite activities is peeling rosebuds and finding what they call the seeds of love inside. And they collect them all. It's like super soothing. If they walk away from that, I'm like, no more rosebuds, guys. They don't have a meltdown. Screens starve children, but touching beauty fills them up. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I will tell you the simplest way that I grab onto beauty in my own life. I love to take walks. I love to take hikes. And it's actually like the most soothing thing. Side note, when I come back from like physical activity outside, it's like the calmest my mind ever is. Anyway, so I will grab something at the beginning of my walk, like an acorn, and I will just keep it the rest of my walk and feel it. And it may sound like dumb to you or like a self-soothing activity. Maybe it is. But I think there's something to this that goes like into the foundation, the deepest depths of the earth. What is the greatest manifestation of the glory of God? It is Jesus Christ in the flesh. And what is our deepest hope as Christians? That we will physically be with Him. I don't just crave the visual beauty in my face. I crave it in my hands. Which brings us to the battle against boredom, which is so irritating and exhausting until I realized its sacred purpose. I bet this has happened to you. I'll have a child want to share an experience with me, and they'll say something like, I was playing Minecraft and we built this mega base in this cliff. I'm glad kids want to share their life with me. But there's this illusion, is my point, of a screen that is not real production. Screens are stealing the real production that actually satisfies. But we know like kids are not just like miniature workers, like get their kids out there and do something useful. They have tons of time to play, which is wonderful. My 9-year-old right now has created a bone club. It hasn't happened yet, but she's worked very hard on the planning process. Everybody's going to get together, and everybody, meaning like these specific girls that she has invited, and they're going to bring their bones. Then everyone will identify their bone. They're going to take a quiz and make plans for the next week. And it's actually a brilliant idea. I really hope that this one actually is accomplished because I think it's so like cool. But even if it's not accomplished, think my daughter is becoming a project planner, which she will do in her life. She's actually creating community. The girls don't even know each other. But let's be clear, this is not just about getting through the summer or getting through the dinner prep. The stakes for the future are much higher. Childhood should be a magic window in which our children play and develop the skills that they need that will then transfer into life-giving work. But if they miss those experiences, man, we have seen so many teenagers struggle. There was one recently that his parents were telling me he didn't make it through his first shift. He was like nervous going in. He starts and he's home in like 4 hours. He couldn't cut it because he had missed out on these formative experiences. Raising children who are able to contribute to society is a top goal we have in a modern culture that's eroding that whole process. And it is something we assess for in that culture proof audit. But here's the honest truth. If you take the brave challenge and cut your kid off from screens and say, go outside and create something that will make you useful one day. I know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. I'm bored. And we think they just need more free play, which is partially true. But for kids whose brains have been trained on screens, they literally do not know how to look and enjoy the world around them. My husband and I taught our kids one skill that turned our whole family around. We taught them to actually notice in a culture that was training them not to. You can click on that video right here and I'll explain the practicalities. Overstimulation should not be the default for children. By having the courage to cut toxic screen use and actively fulfill our children's needs, we can give them their childhood back. Grab the culture proof audit, evaluate for vulnerabilities, and let's stop letting screens steal who our children were meant to be. May God bless your family.